So I'm very often speaking about synchronicity, and so yesterday was a perfect example of how synchronicity plays a part in my life, at least. And so I'm going to be speaking about that. But before I do, I'll just say, first and foremost, that synchronicity is a term that was coined by the eminent psychologist Carl Jung, and it means meaningful coincidence. So, for instance, let's just give an example of what a synchronicity is, as opposed to a meaningful coincidence. A meaningful coincidence, for instance, you could have had a dream about flying around with an umbrella, and then you wake up in the morning and you see your neighbour walking out the door carrying an umbrella, and then you don't think anything of it really, and then you're walking down the road and just randomly you see an umbrella hanging out the top of a waste bin, and you think, oh, that's the third time I've seen umbrellas today. Are they connected in any way? No, they're not. They're just random. Then you could go through your day, and then it could be a beautiful sunny day and you'll notice that somebody is carrying an umbrella, or you find an umbrella hanging in a tree and you think, what on earth is it doing there? But all these incidences aren't connected with one another, and so therefore just coincidence, random and meaningless. Whereas the synchronicity has great meaning. Now, Carl Jung coined this term one day when he was consulting with one of his patients, and the patient was reciting a dream. And the dream, within the dream, was a scarab beetle. Somebody gave this lady a piece of jewellery which was a scarab beetle. And so at that moment in time there was a tapping on the window in the office, and Jung turned round to have a look what the noise was, and it was a bug bouncing on the window trying to enter into the dark room. And so Jung opened the window, and then when the bug flew in, he caught it in mid-air and he discerned that it was a scarab type beetle. And so he contemplated on that more, and then he started to realise that when you have a higher level of awareness of life, these meaningful coincidences happen all the time. So I'm always saying to you that they're happening all the time, and yesterday was a perfect example. So I'm speaking in two videos, and one is called Do You Think That You're Living in the Supernatural Universe? The other one is appealing to you guys to see if you know anything about mental illness. And so in the comments, one of the viewers said, I think the friend that's is consulting with you in relation to his or her mental illness is bringing it on, let's just say it's a girl herself, and she's bringing it on by the negative thoughts that she's thinking. And I said, I think you're most certainly right, because we will find that the vast majority of anxiety and depression are self-induced. We create them with our own thought patterns, and some people who have mental illness, you could be retorting now saying that, I don't think I've created my depression for the past 10 years, Aaron. I think you're talking nonsense. But you see, Freud would say something different about that, and many other psychoanalysts and psychologists would say that it's doubtless what is happening is that your unconscious is creating negative vibrations and negative thoughts, and they in turn are creating a negative lifestyle. For instance, Freud discovered that when he initially was hypnotizing people and regressing them, but then that moved on to just a free association, talking openly, his clients would start to mention past trauma. that the client hadn't spoken about in many years because it's been repressed. And so when investigating these past traumas, then psychologists discern that it's very possible that the illnesses that they have presently, neurosis, mind-created illnesses, are a result to the suppressed negative experience. And so, for instance, a classic one is, let's say, sexual trauma as a child. The adult represses that information because it's too painful to deal with and carry with them throughout their lives. But the point is, it hasn't gone away. It's still there in their unconscious, and unconsciously that dialogue is still running, and the unconscious dialogue is creating an unconscious energy flow, which, if suppressed, it's going to build up and build up and build up, and ultimately it's going to come out in a physical form. And so this is why they're called neurosis, because there's a neurological initiation to the actual illness, because it doesn't get heard, it doesn't have a voice, it can't get catharsism, you see. Talking therapy, it's the whole thing with cognitive behavioral therapy, just to talk about things and get it open, and then think, you know, twice or three times about, you know, your current state and how your mind works. And we all know in this day and age how our mind plays a lot of tricks on us, and it's very popular these days to also understand that the mind is responsible for a lot of our illness. I mean, if anybody has anxiety, what's anxiety about? It's about preempting the future, isn't it? You know, you're anxious because your thoughts are telling you that this is liable to happen. So you're already punishing yourself for an event that probably never will actually happen. I mean, for those of you that suffer anxiety, you know, I would ask you to contemplate on what your internal dialogue was. And invariably it's like, yeah, well, what if this happens, or what if that happens, or this is bound to happen to me. Well, of course, the more you think about those things, then the more likely they are to happen, because our mind and our thoughts create our reality. And so yesterday then, when this viewer said, I think your friend is self-creating her depression, I'm like, yes, I think so too. And the synchronicity comes in when I come here yesterday, and I made a video, but I didn't like how it turned out, and so I'm making a new one today. So I'm reading this book again, and in this chapter which I turned to, yesterday morning I opened it, and the chapter is in relation to Jesus's healing abilities. And there was an occasion when Jesus was out and about, and a nobleman came to see him and asked him if he could come to his house to heal his son, because his son, he thought, was on his deathbed, very, very sick. And so Jesus says, you know, go home to your son, he liveth. And the guy's like, well, how can you just say that? You know, don't you need to go and lay hands on him or do some magic? And then Jesus said, oh, ye of little faith, I'm telling you now, your son liveth. Go home and greet him. So the nobleman went home, and on the way home, one of the nobleman's servants met him and says, miraculously, your son is perfectly well now. And so what this passage is speaking about is about how people can heal. And it's not just Jesus, because many people have the healing ability. We all have the healing ability, and there's many, many stories of this written in books and on the internet and everything, where people actually heal themselves from cancer, no less. And so the subheadings are this: a master can heal the body by restructuring its underlying energy matrix. By restructuring the energy in the body, because it's operating in a certain way, and is given to creating this illness, i.e. neurosis. If our thoughts turn into chemical structure, that's what happens in the brain. That's why we can get emotions in all different sorts of ways, because our brains transmutes the thought forms into matter, into energy forms, and then they have a reaction on the body. So he's saying a master, someone who's versed in this stuff, can heal the body by restructuring. And so the restructuring process, of course, is the way we think about ourselves. If we are depressive and we're always, pessimistic, and we're thinking negatively all the time, well, invariably that's going to cause problems. Whereas an optimistic person, you'll find that generally they don't have anything by way of illnesses, and if they do, they're short-lived, because the positive mind creates positive enzymes in the body, and fight the free radicals, because we're not standing for negative energy within our bodies. We banish it. Next subheading, how concentration on human thought and will acts on the cells of the body. Now, this is very much, for those of you that are familiar with Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza has been around for about 30 years now, and he's wrote many books, and I've read 3 of them, and they're all this thick, by the way. But they're very powerful, and the book that I favour the most was one which was called The Placebo. We are the placebo. And so in that book he says, look, we are the placebo because we can heal ourselves or make ourselves sick depending on how we think. And so if we have an illness, then we just tell ourselves that I'm sucking in pure life form and vitality and healing power, and then lo and behold, that will make manifest. So Joe Dispenza, for those of you that are not familiar, has got loads of videos all over YouTube. The next subheading, healing by affirmations, the dynamic vibratory power of the spoken word. Of course, mantras and affirmations every day in every way is getting better and better, and all these different sorts of things. Well, by the time we condition our unconscious to completely reiterate these thoughts, then we'll start to live in a very healthy way. The unconscious mind is like a child. Whatever you tell it, it believes, and it repeats, and it stores up like a recording device, and whatever is recorded on the device is going to be churned out incessantly until whatever's recorded has been rewritten. You've got to override your negative mantras and thoughts and replace them with new positive ones. This author, by the way, he died in 1952, so this stuff's been around a long time. Of course it has. Jesus knew about it. Vibrations of healing and prayers for others are effective at any distance. So we can say these affirmations or we can say prayers, and we can direct them to somebody, and they will have an effect. Doesn't matter how far away. And some of you may have tried this by sending love to a family member or friend or something like this when they've been in hospital and they've been ill, and you've been wanting to help them because you feel powerless. So what can I do? What can I do? You go visit them once a day and take them some grapes, but what you can do is tune in with your heart to their heart, and you can send cosmic healing power to them, which is a thing, people, and you'll dismiss it at your own peril. Harnessing mind power to heal by positive thinking, affirmations or prayer. So I opened the book and it's like, wow, this is exactly what I'm dealing with this client of mine. I made those videos, and then people were commenting on them, and then I opened the book. So this is synchronistic. and it's beautiful how the synchronicity works. And I said to you guys, I said, look, how it works, you know, I'll be saying something, thinking something, and then the next paragraph will be whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be related, it can be completely random, which it often is. And so I'll read one or two of the highlighted paragraphs, so you can get where I'm coming from. A divinely strong mind implanting a thought of health and perfection in another person can dissolve a stubborn thought of illness and cause a surge of restorative healing energy. So somebody has got these negative mantras and, you know, killing themselves slowly with their thoughts. It is possible, if you are pretty versed in this stuff and you are determined and you really believe in it, then you can send these thoughts into your friend and override their thoughts, because their thoughts aren't that powerful. They have been going on a long time, but they don't have the power that your thoughts as a budding master do. And so ultimately, all disease can be found to have psychological roots, with every thought in turn being an ideation of consciousness. Thought is thus the brain, the architect of the cells and units of life force in every particle of the tissue, influencing the functions of the underlying intelligent lifetrons. Hence, disease thoughts can upset the entire government of the body, of the life force in the cells. If strong enough or chronic enough, such thoughts manifest as bodily disease. If your thoughts are, you know, strong enough and consistent enough, and they're bad thoughts, then it is also like Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton, the biologist, he has discovered that cells are not genetically programmed to be exactly what we presuppose they are. There's been lots of talks about, oh, it's genetics. If both your parents are short, oh, it's genetic and I'm going to be short. And then it turns out that you're not short. You're 6'2". How's that work when nobody in your family has ever reached those dizzy heights? Well, it just goes to show that it isn't genetic, and it could be that you were eating certain foods, or you was doing some sort of exercise or a lifestyle which changed, it overrode the genetic structure. Genetics is a thing, but they're not the be-all and the end-all, and they can be changed. And that's what Bruce Lipton has been saying, because he's found this throughout his tests, that it all depends on environment. If you have cells, 3 batches of the same cell taken from the same part of the body, you put them into petri dishes and you put them into different environments. One where you've got, you know, hellish music blasting out, a nasty vibration all the time, well, those cells are going to get sick. If you've got beautiful, I don't know, like Beethoven, Schubert or something playing, then the chances are those cells will thrive. It's like the rice experiment, people. You know, this world is a supernatural world, and that's why my whole book is on the supernatural cosmos. It's a wonderful, beautiful, intelligent thing. So if your thoughts are strong enough or chronic enough, such thoughts manifest as bodily disease. Conversely, a strong thought of health can correct any disorder in the cellular system. And so there you have it, as far as the synchronicity goes, whereby I was speaking about the exact same thing, you know, being mind over matter, and we create our own reality, and la-di-da-di-da. And so it's all really powerful stuff. And so in my book I'm making reference to how faith, which is belief, creates our reality. Because if we believe in something, and if we have something which is stronger than belief, which is faith, which can be exceedingly powerful. If you really believe that there is a God and God's looking after you and one day you're going to be with God, then you're going to be manifesting ramifications of that within your life, and you're going to be thinking much more positively. You're going to be calm. And pigeons are having a row up there, helicopter over there, bells will start chiming in a minute, doubtless. Birds are singing pretty loudly as well. I've bought this deck chair so I can sit, because I couldn't sit here before except on one of the tombstones over there, and it wasn't comfortable, so I've invested in a little deck chair, and I can come and sit under the trees, and I can receive all the chi, listening to the birds, and in this beautiful environment, just in case any of you have forgotten. To be in the vicinity of wonderful architecture, everything built with man's labour, it really is a beautiful thing. And then when the bells chime out and all the birds are singing and squirrels are bouncing all around, and the beautiful lush green grass soft on my bare feet, and nobody's going to be complaining about my short shorts. So, yes, the power of the mind. And so I wrote 22 pages in relation to faith and belief, and there's still more. I still have to write probably an equal amount, because there's so much diversity. What does faith mean to the individual? It means whatever your interpretation of it is, you see. No concept is anything per se, it's just an idea. And if you have an idea about God being a certain something, well, I mean, the chances are very few other people will have that idea also. They're going to go, oh no, my God's not like that, my God's this and that. And so we can see that there is nothing here per se which really is what we could consider as concrete, because it's all down to perception. And so when we look then at faith, I would think, well, I mean, if you look in the dictionary what faith is ascribed to be, then you will always see belief, you will always see maybe hope, and you'll see that it's a long-term projection of a manifestation of a desire, basically. But what I haven't read, and I've thought about this myself, is that faith could very easily be supplanted by love, and love would override faith, it would override belief, it would override hope, and it would override any other interpretation that you have about your particular deity. Because you don't need to have faith, a belief that there's a God. You just need to love your God. And then when you love your God, instantly you feel the ramifications of your thoughts, because when you think love, when you feel love, you generate love. And so if you are thinking about loving God and you're generating the love in your body, then it's a very reasonable assumption to assume that you are being loved in turn. Now, many years ago I discovered something which was very profound. We've all heard of tree huggers. Well, on this particular occasion I was out in the woods and I thought, I'm going to try this tree hugging thing, because I've never done it before and I don't really grasp the concept. There's always lots more to certain concepts, people, than meets the eye. And so we just think, oh, these tree huggers, they just, you know, want to protect the nature and la la la, you know, and it gets really tiresome, these Greenpeace folk, but it isn't tiresome, it's very beautiful, and it's a very, you know, good cause to have in life. So I hugged a tree, and when I hugged the tree, the very act of my hugging something, and the only other times I've ever hugged anything in my life has been a human being. You know, I've never been given to hugging teddy bears or action men, and so the only experience I have ever had of hugging would be if I was wanting to get close to somebody, like a friend, or give us a hug, you know, or a partner, you know, or a family member, where you actually want to embrace and pass your love from your heart into their heart, and maybe receive the love from their heart, because in close proximity we can feel each other's natural vibration, and we can exchange this, of course. And so when I hugged this tree, I instantly felt as if the tree was hugging me back, because the only experience I had of hugging something was when something was hugging me back, except on one occasion, the first and only occasion I ever hugged my old man. And when I hugged him, it was like hugging a rock, a completely cold, inanimate rock. He wasn't capable of loving. He'd never uttered the word love to any of his kids in his life. He just didn't do it. But his actions showed that he did love his kids, but he just couldn't say it for some reason, and he couldn't, you know, hug any one of us and go, oh, I love you. So I hugged him on the day I was getting the flight to go to Australia for a year, and he just, you know, stood there, you know, he was crying at the time, because, you know, he was going to miss me, gone for a whole year, and he was ill at the time with his mental depression. And he was just trembling and solid as a rock, and I put my hands around him, my arms, and he never put his arms around me. You know, that was too much for him to do. And so that's the only time I never felt the hug reciprocated. But when we hug trees, it is perfectly natural, because we're embracing something, to feel as if we are being loved back. But you see, then when we look into trees even more, we discern that they are sentient beings. What the fuck? And cobwebs and shit all over me. Gotta be careful this time of year, because you get drunk wasps, and they're drunk on fermenting fruit, and they'll fall out of trees, and you know what wasps are like, you know, they'll just sting you for the fun of it. So yeah, hugging a tree, it really felt good. And what I've come to know about trees is they are sentient creatures. They do have a variety of consciousness. Everything has consciousness, people, because everything's made of atoms, and atoms are conscious. And so when you've got something so beautiful and so intelligent like trees, well, you can see that they are genius in everything that they do. And it's so wonderful. So I'm sitting under a lime tree, getting the shade from the early morning sun. Okay, so am I about ready to finish up this video? I think yes, I am. The battery's getting low. So just to recap then, I mean, the whole synchronicity, if we look back, there's a lineage of things being related to each other. I mean, all the things I'm saying, all the videos I'm making, of course they're all related via the particular topics, but they're related because they're all my offspring. They're all my children, and so I am giving birth to them via my word, just like in the beginning was the word. And so in the beginning of everything is the word. We speak things into creation, and so we have to be very careful about our dialogue. And this is why I said the other day when I started this rice experiment that I'm not even going to use the H-A-T-E word. I'm not saying it. I'm not having it a part of my body. And you know, for all of my life I've never engaged in that particular emotion. It's just not possible for me. I could have been very angry at lots of points in my life, but I have never had that H-A-T-E thing going on, because it's never been a part of me, never been a part of my construct, and so don't engage in it. And so yes, synchronicity is a beautiful thing, and if we continue with our awareness, then we can see that we have these synchronistic things on an ongoing basis. And so now I am reading you know, these particular paragraphs in this book. I will be in the vibration of that whole arena of that thought vibration. I've just finished that particular chapter, and so now I'm starting, what things the Father doeth, these also doeth the Son likewise. So this is when Jesus says, truly I say unto you, everything I can do, you can do more. And so this is again telling us that we have the power to heal. And so if you listen to Joe Dispenza, then he will tell you this in every single one of his books and videos. Bruce Lipton will tell you the same. So many people will tell us the same. So why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we all living in perfect health? Why aren't we all experiencing a perfect bliss life? Well, I mean, without, you know, tooting my trumpet too much, I'm living it. I am the result of a positive internal dialogue which I've had for all of my life, and this is why, you know, in comparison to other people my age, I still look, you know, pretty sprightly, with all of my own teeth, save for one, my own hair, and, you know, skin and body and organs and everything being in very good form. It's because, like a plant, if you put it in a nice environment, it's going to thrive. If it has the nutrients it needs, the water it needs, the sunlight, and if it's in an environment whereby it feels loved, believe it or not. Prince Charles used to do this all the time. He was a great adherent of this, talking to plants in a kind way. Well, I mean, he was doing this, you know, 30, 40 years ago. And so, you know, all this stuff is possible, people. And so I know there's lots of you that have anxiety and depression and this, that and the other, and then you say, well, yeah, I know that, you know, you could cure this and that, but, you know, most people don't know how to do it. Well, I'm telling you how to do it, and if this is the only information you had, and if you just said to yourself each day mantras, every day and every way, I'm getting better and better, I love life, I'm perfect, I'm beautiful and healthy, you know, all these sort of things. If you condition your unconscious mind, then your unconscious will be filled with all these beautiful affirmations, and then that's what you will be fed. And if you are watching negative nonsense on any media platform, then you are filling your body with, not just your mind, people, you're filling your body with this rubbish. And so this is why I, after all these years, no longer get involved with this conspiratorial stuff, because long-term viewers will be well aware of the shift in my demeanour, my disposition in very recent times, because I had the fortune, the gift of not being in the arena of all of that negative stuff. Now, when I used to make videos, I was heavily influenced about all this negative stuff, about what they're doing to us, and then you take on board and you generate the anger, and you take it on board what other people have been speaking about, and then you add to it, and then you put it back out. So what happens? There's just what you can say, a hurricane of anger, and we all get sucked into it unless we're very, very careful. Now, I was subject to it, and even though I know a great deal of how the human mind works, but I was involved in it, and even though I could say at the time that I'm not really angry, I'm just acting, well, I was acting a lot, wasn't I? And so even if I was only acting, I was acting within the same vibration that I was watching and listening to. And so on the premise of that, it wasn't wholesome, and I would say lots of things which wasn't conducive to people really feeling comfortable about listening to my videos, and so now, if I don't label people as X, Y, and Z, and I don't carry that energy, and I don't continue the energy, I'm conveying and emitting a different variety of energy now, aren't I? I'm emitting a vastly more positive energy, and I'm saying to you, and some of you, you're struggling with it, because we at this particular time in the Western world, primarily, we have been conditioned out of the supernatural and how powerful we are as individuals, and this whole thing is a supernatural experience, and as soon as we tune into that, then we can indeed do more than what Jesus did, and Jesus could walk on water and raise the dead, by the way. And so I know that I am capable of most certainly healing myself, because I've done it on so many occasions, even healing other people close to me who believe and have a certain faith in my love and my desire to heal them, and then they take that on board, and coupled with their love and desire for themselves, then that makes manifest into something beautiful. And look, when we were kids, or your kids, your kids fall over, graze their knee, and they come running to you crying, and you rub it better and you kiss it better, and as soon as you rub it better and kiss it better, the tears dry up and the screeching stops, and 90% of the pain goes away, and then it's kind of like, oh, let's put a plaster on it, and then you put a plaster on it, and then like 2 minutes later the kids are running around as if nothing had happened. You see, because it's all mind. They fall over, they see a little bit of blood, they think of the worst, and then it's like, oh, the pain is 1,000-fold, because this is what the body does for self-protection. But then when you instill in the child that, no big deal, oh, that'll be better in a couple of days, here, there you go. And then it's all better, isn't it? And so we can do that as adults, people. We really can. And so I'm doing it to myself all the time. But there's a lot of truth in that. So if we do it to other people, and we can even do it to friends, we can do it to strangers to a degree, but I am not a full adherent that we can really love our neighbour or our enemy as we do ourselves, which is one of the requests from the New Testament, and I can say that I in actual fact haven't ever come upon anybody which is 100% in line with that. Lots of these Bible scholars will try to the best of their mental ability to take that on board, because it's what supposedly Jesus said and it must be true, but their minds can't lend themselves to considering it so. Love thy neighbour, well, love your enemy. How in actual fact do you do this? When they want to kill you, you love them in return? Well, don't think that's going to do it's not going to be too much of a deterrent, to be fair. Wasp is around me, guys and gals. Keep your eye on those little fecks. So okay, I've got my book to engage with. Sitting here in the onset of autumn, watching the odd yellow leaf just gently fall to the ground all around me, and seeing the remnants of life, butterflies and bees and flies and all this sort of stuff. They're all active, but alas, within a couple of months max, they're all going to be gone. And so I need to retain and bask in this level of awareness, joy, self-love and love of the cosmos, whilst reading about love and imparting love, in a hope that my existence here on earth is participant in creating a better, more conducive to happiness world, and filled with just a little bit more love. Huh? There's the thought for the day, people and friends.